Good morning, friends and family. I don't actually think my family watches me. So, good morning, friends and strangers. Today's video is all about where I park the van. Oh my god, what am I doing? Today's video is all about where I park the van at night. Before I can dive into this video, I do want to let you know that this video is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform. They offer over 30,000 different classes, and they're all kind of geared towards like creatives, independent business workers, anybody who works independently. Though obviously it's not limited to just that. Right now, they are offering my subscribers a 2-month free trial to their premium membership, which gives you unlimited access to all of the classes on their website. This month, I've been really struggling with time management, which, as it happens, is a whole category on their website. I've been scrolling through this month because I have had a really hard time concentrating on like getting videos done. So if you're anything like me, go check those classes out. There are a ton. Click on the link, it's down in the bio. Without further ado, let me move on to this video. Again, topic of this video is where I park my van at night. So I want to start this topic off by saying that last summer I did completely solo female van lifing, as goes the hashtag on YouTube and Instagram. But this summer I have actually been traveling more so with a boy. Obviously we separate, he's got his own truck, so we go off, but it's definitely less solo this time around. So but I do want to make sure everybody knows that I do have experience being completely solo female in the van, figuring out where to sleep. The format of this video, with that in mind, I was going to go through my list of places that I sleep by where I felt like most safe sleeping at night, I guess. I wanted to start out, I've got about 6 different places, kind of like cover-all places that I have in mind. So I'm gonna just go through those and I'll start now. The first and probably most boring place that I felt absolute safest was my dad's driveway. No. First real place is Walmart parking lots. I actually had no idea, because like I'd never grown up with like an RV or anything. Like we never did like car trips, so we never slept out on like streets. But apparently Walmart parking lots are like very well known for being places that people who sleep in their cars can sleep and not get in any trouble, and it's kind of like a sure place that you're able to park overnight. Last summer I actually ended up sleeping in a lot of Walmart parking lots because it is kind of just like the surest place I could sleep. It was like, okay, I will always be able to sleep here. This is always an option. I don't have to like second guess whether I'm legally allowed to be here. That being said, there is also no sleep Walmarts, where like if you Google no sleep Walmarts, a list of places, like different Walmarts that you actually can't sleep at will pop up. So if you're worried about it and you don't see other people sleeping in that parking lot, Google it. That way you'll avoid having like the security knock on your window. For the most part, Walmarts feel very safe to me. There's other people living in their cars that are sleeping in the back of the parking lot. It's kind of like a little community. A lot of Walmarts where you're allowed to sleep are open 24 hours, which is really great. As a girl, like sleeping in my car, safety wise, a place that's open 24 hours is really nice, because it's like, okay, there's always going to be somebody in that store. I will always be able to like run inside if I'm worried about something or like feeling uncertain. Plus in the morning when you wake up, you've got a bathroom, you've got food, you can, you know, like this was probably the best place. Also, like when I was on my period, I would just default to sleeping at a Walmart because A, they've got bathrooms, B, tampons, like if I'm running out of tampons, but like just comfort level, it was just like so mind-numbingly easy. Level of scenic beauty, 0. Like, but if you don't care where you're sleeping that night, it's just such an easy option. You always know where it's gonna be. It's so easy. That is my explanation for Walmarts. Totally not adventurous or fun or pretty. The second location that I find most common and easy and a little bit more like pretty is actually residential neighborhoods. There's like a soft spot here, or like a sweet spot for residential neighborhoods. On some ends of the spectrum, I would say some residential neighborhoods are really sketchy. Usually you can kind of gauge that, I would say, just by driving through a neighborhood. If you wouldn't want to leave your car parked there, you probably wouldn't want to sleep overnight there. But also on the other spectrum of that, you probably won't want to be sleeping in a suburb or like some sort of fancy neighborhood where it's kind of, it looks like maybe it's a close-knit community. Like, I personally have had weird experiences. I slept at like this one like kind of fancier looking neighborhood, and when I woke up the next morning and like got in my front seat, I saw like this lady like on her phone like writing down my license plate number. I was like, oh god, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. The sweet spot for neighborhoods is like just outside of the city. So tonight Mav and I are going to a residential neighborhood to sleep. Residential neighborhoods are my go-to, I would say, for sleeping. Oh god, I lost Mav. When I was like solo doing this and Mav wasn't around, outside of Walmart's, this was kind of my other favorite place to sleep, just because I have like 3 reasons. One, they are really easy to blend in with. They like, there's so many other cars parked along the streets in residential neighborhoods that like you never really get bothered by anybody. You're not sticking out. Two, there's people everywhere, obviously. Like it's a residential neighborhood, so people are inside their houses sleeping. So worst case scenario, if something's going on, like if somebody decides to come in your van or something, there's people everywhere, you know. If I can make enough noise, people will come out. If I can get out of my van, I can run to a neighbor's house or something. So that always makes me feel really good. And then third reason is they're pretty much everywhere. So very easy to find. When I can't find like a scenic outlook, or I can't find like a Walmart or something, there's almost always a residential neighborhood. The downside of residential neighborhoods is that, sorry, I'm so stuffy. I'm getting over a cold. And also I'm driving, so if you can hear my engine, I'm sorry. Downside to residential neighborhoods is if you're in a Ford Econoline, like I am, you can sketch out the neighbors. I usually park in kind of more like inner city neighborhoods where the cars along the road are changing all the time. They tend to get different pockets of cars instead of like close-knit communities like suburbs where they're like pretty aware of who's sleeping there. I've had a couple of like sketched out neighbors like call the police before, and like the police have come knocking on my door at like 6 a.m. and I've had to move my van. The other downside to residential neighborhoods is that a lot of times if you can't park overnight, or if it's like permit parking only, there will be signs, but also there could not be signs. I do know that my cousin's neighborhood where I've slept before in my van doesn't have any signage that says no overnight parking. Speaking of the devil, I'm parking right now. It doesn't say no overnight parking, but technically you can't park overnight, which she knows, but I wouldn't have known. So in that case, I have to call the non-emergency line and register my car so that any night patrol or whatever knows that I'm parked there and that I'm allowed to be there. Things to think about. The more you know. Anyway, just got to our little neighborhood. I don't know how we picked this neighborhood. Anyway, I'm gonna go to sleep now. And this kind of goes for all the categories, I try not to overstay my welcome there. I try to be very courteous of where I'm sleeping and where I'm parking. If I stay there for more than a couple days, I start feeling really kind of bad about it, just because it's not really my space. I'm not paying to be there. I'm not, it's like, I don't want to overstay the fact that they're already maybe uncomfortable with this weird Ford Econoline sleeping outside of their house. Third place that I prefer sleeping And if I could do this all the time, actually, I would. This would be my number one, but it's a little harder to find, is kind of more like off-road or pull-off or campsite parking. And I know that this seems, when you think of van life, this is what I feel like I thought I was going to be sleeping in the woods every night or whatever. I had like this glorified view of like where I would be sleeping every night. And I was a little disappointed when I realized the reality. I'm not gonna pay for a camp fee every night that I'm sleeping. Like, that just would be ridiculous. So I think I've paid for a campsite maybe twice in the whole time I've done this. Just because like it feels dumb to be paying, like that's the point of living in my van. I don't wanna pay rent, right? I don't wanna pay whatever. So I have two apps that I really love. Well, one app, one website. The app that I like is called iOverlander, and then freecampsites.net. And they're kind of communal websites. So like everybody just kind of adds their own information to it. So you're kind of adding to the community of knowledge. They're both pretty similar in the fact that they both show you places that other people have stayed overnight in their cars or camping or whatever. And they kind of give you an idea of like places you might be able to get to and be away from people. They usually have like a description of what the location was like. Sometimes people will put like, oh, we slept in this Walmart parking lot, and it's like, okay, that's not what I was looking for. But there are also places like this place that Nav and I went and slept this past week, and it was amazing. I mean, we're in like Southern California right now, and we were in LA and we just wanted to get away from people, and there was just nowhere to get away from people. So we looked on the iOverlander app, and somebody had marked this like sort of off-road trail. We went up there, and it was just, we were completely alone overlooking this beautiful lake, and we just slept there overnight because there's no signs, there's nothing. When I was doing this alone, it was a little bit more sketchy. Not a little bit more sketchy. It was just, I mean, obviously anybody's gonna feel a little nervous being completely alone in the middle of the woods. But that, you know, as a girl, I think I didn't notice that I was a little bit more sketched out about that kind of thing until I started traveling with Mav. He just wanted to be somewhere totally remote every single night, and I was like, whoa, I've never done this, I guess. Like, and I was like, why? Like, I wanted to do that, but he would like sleep in places that I was just like, I don't know, I wouldn't do this, because like I want to avoid getting my window knocked on at all costs, because like as a guy, sure, like you have to worry about like burglars or whatever, but like as a girl, I don't even know if I open my door and it's a cop, like I don't even know, you know, like it might, like whoever I open the door to might not have known that I was a girl sleeping in here, and now they've noticed that I'm a girl, and like anything could happen. So I mean, I'm not like a very afraid person, but it's a reality that kind of gets ingrained in the back of your brain as a girl, I think. And so it was kind of eye-opening to see Mav kind of be parking anywhere he wanted and not be quite as worried about things as I was. And I definitely have started to be less worried. I think I've started to figure out kind of where I feel more and more comfortable. That's why I put Walmart and residential neighborhoods first on this list. But if I could remove all fear, I would put like remote locations absolutely first, because that's kind of the point, right? I want to get away from society. But yeah, those places are beautiful, they're wonderful. I don't have anything else to say about those. Those are just great, and they're going to vary no matter where you are, so you'll figure it out. This one, the fourth one, seems kind of obvious. It would be like parking outside of friends and family's houses. This should have gone up at the beginning. I don't know why I put this out of order. Friends' houses are great, especially in the city. Mav and I are staying in Los Angeles for work, and we've been kind of bouncing between two of my friends' houses just because, sure, we could sleep in kind of any neighborhood in Los Angeles, but it's a little bit safer feeling in front of like my friend Tessa's house or my friend Sam's house, just because I know that they're in there. I have their phone numbers. When we wake up in the morning, we get to like go in and like have coffee, or like they'll come out and like chit chat, or like sometimes we'll get to use their showers. Comfort level, very high, very nice. The fifth place to park that I have found outside of bars, which is really bizarre. I don't know why.
Okay, so I wanted to film this one because tonight is a Saturday night, and Mav and I are planning on going out for drinks tonight. We're at the marina in Dana Point. Am I crazy? It's near San Clemente. And basically we're just gonna go get drinks, and oddly enough I've had a lot of luck with parking outside of bars, and that's because almost every time I've gone into a bar and asked the bartender if I can sleep in the parking lot, the answer has been yes. Actually, I can't think of any circumstances where I've asked if I can sleep in the parking lot and they've said no. I think most bars are happy to have cars stay outside of their facilities just because that means people are less likely to be drinking and driving. So I've found that tends to be usually an acceptable place to park if you ask ahead of time. This probably also goes, I think I've done this a few other times, but I think it also goes with just like small businesses in general. If you ask at a small business, usually the answer is sure. Unless it's like an employee. You know, if you like ask at a small business and you happen to get like the owner, like a manager or somebody, I feel like for the most part, they're very understanding if you're like, hey, just like, it's late, I need a place to park, I need a place to sleep for the night, I'd love to sleep outside of your establishment, I'll park in the back, whatever. You know, you're just very like kind and like, oh, I'll leave in the morning, I just don't want any problems. And I didn't want to sleep out there without asking, because that way, if the cops do come knock on your window in the middle of the night, you can, you know, give them like a reasonable answer saying like, oh, like I made sure I went in and asked the owner or I asked the manager or whatever, and they said it's fine if I sleep out here for the night. Again, like, I think it's all about just being kind to like everybody, you know, like ask, like just being very understanding, saying it's totally fine if it's not okay, you know, like you'll find other places to sleep, but I just think it's pretty easy. Like people tend to be okay if they meet you, you know, they know that some weirdo isn't like sleeping out there and haven't met them or don't know them. So this is my long-winded version of saying Nav and I are going to try sleep in this parking lot tonight, and we're going to ask the bartender if they think it's okay. In this lot where I am, there's actually, again, like, you'll probably want to pay attention to signage, because a lot of them, like, anytime there's signs posted, it'll usually tell you if there's no overnight parking. The reason I think this one's going to be okay is because all around this parking lot it says 4-hour parking from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But nowhere on these signs, and I looked all around, does it say no overnight parking. So, I also feel like I could use that if, like, somebody did knock on my door and was like, hey, like, you're not supposed to be sleeping here. I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I checked the signs, it didn't say anything about no overnight parking. I just assumed it was, like, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. parking restrictions. So, I have a feeling I'm gonna lead with that. When I go talk to the bartender, I'm gonna go lead with the fact that, like, the signs don't say no overnight parking. They just have the time restrictions for the daytime. So these are my plans. This is my thought process every time I am like parking somewhere. I'm like, would this case hold up in court? All right. Anyway. Come on, make a move.
My kind of last place that I would talk about, and I actually have not stayed at one of these before. I've stayed at a gas station before, but what I was going to say is like truck stops and rest stops. Obviously, truck stops are there for truckers to sleep and shower and whatnot. I have never stayed at one of those because it's hard to stay somewhere new. It's like uncomfortable, you know, you're not comfortable with like the system. So I've never needed to. I also, again, as a girl, it's like, I'd rather not sleep in a place where a bunch of truckers are going to be sleeping also. Not that I have anything against truckers, but like, it's a bunch of men surrounding you, and like, this sounds bad. I don't know. Again, it's just kind of like a sketchy, it's like, I don't know. I'm just a girl alone in my van, and there's a bunch of, you know, dudes sleeping, doing stuff, who knows what. I don't know. I've never needed to sleep in a truck stop, so I would probably have no problem doing it, but I also just haven't needed to. So as for rest stops, I know a lot of them say like no sleeping or like no overnight parking, but I have a feeling if you decided to sleep in your car and somebody like had a problem with it, you could just be like, oh, I was driving, I couldn't keep my eyes open, I didn't want to drive unsafely, so I don't think that would be a problem. So that's kind of like all of my places that I have kind of listed out. I don't think I'm missing any. Obviously there's like always some sort of anomaly and you're like, oh, like I'm sleeping somewhere completely new tonight. I didn't even think of this option. I don't know. If you have any other ideas or like suggestions, feel free to put it in the comments. Would love to tack on some new ideas, especially for anybody who's like looking into doing this. There are a few things that I wanted to talk about that I know some people are gonna ask. I do not have a gun. I have like the tiniest little thing of mace. I didn't even buy it. I just happened to like, somebody like left it or something, and it's like in my van now. But I also, I mean, I have my like magnetic knife rack over here right next to my bed, so I've got a knife, I guess. But I just like, it makes me nervous almost having a weapon because I'm not very confident in myself about actually using it. I guess more often than not, a weapon ends up being used against the victim. Like the weapon that you had in your hand usually gets taken from you and used against you. So I don't know. I know myself. I've been mugged before. I freeze up. I'm a total freeze up person. Like I'm the kind of person who would probably put their blankets over their head and try to pretend I wasn't there. I don't think I would react well with an intruder. And so fingers crossed I don't ever have one. But no, I do not have a gun, so we're just gonna get rid of that one right now. I don't think I should have a gun in my hands. It seems risky. There are just like a few other things I want to talk about. When I first started, I was having a lot of trouble finding even street parking. I think I was in Michigan, and Michigan had like all of the towns said like no parking from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. or something, just exclusively so that they're not like, there's no people parking overnight, I guess, probably. It was driving me crazy. I was like, where am I gonna sleep? And I don't think I had thought about Walmarts at that point, or wasn't near one or something. And I couldn't find any street parking, so I called the non-emergency line. I was like, hey, is there anywhere where I can park my car overnight? Like, I need to know, like, I need to park my car overnight. I didn't tell them I was sleeping in my car, obviously, but like, I was like, where? Like, I feel like they have to tell you. And then they just gave me like the name of a parking lot where it was like, I'm still on the phone. So that was one solution if you're really like, I literally don't know where to sleep. So I hope that was helpful. Every time I've run into a cop knocking on my window, yeah, you get like this adrenaline rush of like, oh my god, I was sleeping, what's going on? It's always been fine. They're usually just like, hey, we just need you to move along, move somewhere else. Obviously, I can only talk from my own experience. I have no idea what experience anybody else could have. It depends on you, it depends on your location, it depends on the situation, it depends on the cop, it depends, you know, like anything could happen. Just from my experience though, I have not had any problems, and that's all I can say. Yeah, I'll let you know if I do. I'll tell you what happens, and but thus far I've been really lucky. I've been totally fine. I have not really felt unsafe in the van. So there you have it. That's all I've got for you. So I'm going to hang up the iPhone now. If you have any more questions about van life, comment them, send me messages. Down to hear your thoughts. Alright, comment, like, subscribe. I never do that at the end of my videos. I feel like I should do that more often. Alright, see you later, guys.